freedom, right? I was not an expert at graphic design, yet there I was in the middle of the night doing it. But how do I know? How do I know if I'm ready to build a team? So if that's something that you have been thinking about, well, you're in luck, because in this video, we're gonna get into it right now. Hey, Courtney Sanders here. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to me, I'm a full-time online life and business coach, as well as wife and mom. I wear all the hats and do all the things, but I do it because I'm so passionate about helping you turn your success story into a 6- or 7-figure brand. And speaking of wearing all the hats and doing all of the things, I make no illusions. The reason why I'm able to do so much of this is because I have been building a team over this last year who's really supported me in a variety of ways. I have built a team at home. In fact, I think of them as my home team. So it first started with my housekeeper, and then brought in my nanny who's been supporting us, and then now we even have a meal prep chef who comes once a week and helps create healthy meals for the family, so I can focus on this during the week, and then we can, cook and have fun together as a family on the weekend. So that's my home team. But then even in my business, again, been bringing in a lot of people to support me over the course of this year, whether it was my instructional designers who helped me build my brand new program, the Next Big Name Bootcamp, really phenomenal. And I was just so grateful for them, because they were able to help me take my knowledge and organize it in a way that is according to best practices for adult learning and learning science. And so the program is just really phenomenal. But again, that's just one example of having a team in my business and how it's been really supporting me. And so I thought it'd be fun for this video to talk about how you know when you're ready for a team, because I'll be honest, I was very nervous to bring on a team again. And I say again because I actually had an episode in 2018 when my business was still heavily reliant on one-on-one clients. I found out I was pregnant with my son in 2018, and so I wasn't able to continue the workload that I had at the time with all these one-on-one clients that I was meeting with. And so I started to let those engagements roll off, whereas clients finished, I wasn't bringing on new clients, and then not surprisingly, my revenue dropped. And so I was really scrambling, trying to figure out how I was gonna keep the revenue going in my business. But it got to the point where at the time I had 2 US-based people who were working with me full-time. I was paying them full US-based salaries, and I had to let them go. And so I just felt so much shame at that time and so much embarrassment. And I kind of made a subtle promise to myself that I was always gonna keep my business lean and I would never hire anybody ever again. I never wanted to be in that position, but I really had to make a choice over this year to let go of that limiting belief. And in fact, I talk about limiting beliefs that you need to let go of if you wanna succeed in your business. You can check that out here, wherever it is on the screen. But that was a limiting belief that I needed to let go. And so it was very scary. I let go of that limiting belief, and I started to first slowly build my team, and then it started to get quickly because we were always bringing in new people to support the rapid growth of all the new clients that we were bringing on and just the rate of my program growing. And so that has been my experience, and I just want to share some insights with you because you might be at the same juncture in your business. In fact, I bet many of you watching this have been resisting hiring a team. You've known that you needed support for a while, and you've been kind of hemming and hawing, and you're like, but how do I know? How do I know if I'm ready to build a team? So if that's something that you have been thinking about, well, you're in luck, because in this video, we're gonna get into it right now. All right, the first way you know that you are ready to build a team is when you find yourself constantly sacrificing high value tasks for lower value ones. Now hear me on this, because the lower value tasks that you might be working on might still be really important to your business. It still might be critical to your business, but it might be lower value in the sense that if you spend your time on that, you are forfeiting time that you could be spent on something else that could have a greater impact for the business. So in the very, very beginning of my business, I realized this was happening when it came to answering and managing my email and doing customer service. At the time, this was back in 2015, I was working full-time in my business, and I was really focused on like smaller digital products. And so with digital products, obviously you're gonna have a lot of issues with people saying, oh, I forgot my password, or I thought I got the login link, I didn't get it, can you resend it? Very simple questions to answer, but a high volume of them because I was selling a lot of digital products. And so I had to make the decision, even back in 2015, to bring on a virtual assistant who could support me in customer support, emails, especially because I was working full-time. So I always tell people that I hired her before I hired myself, in the sense that I was working full-time, but I hired her to handle that. And so that was important because it was a critical task in my business, right? If your customers pay for something and they don't have the link or they need their password reset, you need to be available available and responsive to that, but it wasn't a high value task in my business in the sense that me spending all my time on that all day was not gonna move the business forward. And so for many people who are resisting getting a team, you know that it's time for you to get a team because you're not doing the things that you know you need to be doing to move your business forward, because you're working on kind of lower level work. Again, it's important in your business, that's why you do it, but it's something that you should be delegating off. So I always ask myself, can I pay someone less money than I would make spending this time doing something else, right? So for me, doing the customer service task, it was like, you know what? This is a $7 an hour task, $8 an hour task, $9 an hour task. Could I make more than $7, $8, $9 an hour if I had that time free to work on something else in my business? And the answer, of course, was yes, right? I've made as much as like $60,000 on a 30-minute live stream, right? So even just creating content and showing up online and doing videos like this is more likely to help me attract clients where I can earn a lot more than the $7, $8, $9 that I really needed to be paying to have someone else do that for me. So the first sign that it's time for you to build a team is that you are sacrificing higher level tasks for lower level ones. All right, the second sign that you need to hire a team is that you are turning clients away. So this is like a good, bad problem to have. It's a good problem to have in that you're hitting capacity and people are very interested in what you have. They're like, ooh, I wanna join your coaching programs. They wanna do all the things with you, but you're starting to have like, you know, hey, I can't take you on right now because your time is really limited. And so you wanna ask yourself, what is it that you are working on? And is it more valuable to your business? Does it generate more revenue than having those additional clients does? Now, you will get to a point where the answer is no. And I know that sounds crazy, but I get a lot of requests for people who want me to do one-on-one coaching sessions with them. I'm extremely strict on the one-on-one clients that I take now, and I'm taking much less because of just what I'm focusing on in my business. I'm really focusing on stepping into a CEO role in my business and really not selling my time for dollars anymore, even though it's a high level of dollars. So for me, I've gotten to a place in my business where, you know, there's things that I'm doing, but the answer for me is no. Like I still don't necessarily want to take on a one-on-one client because it's more valuable for me to stay in the business. But oftentimes when you are growing your business, it's more valuable for you to work with clients than it is for you to be doing, you know, knick-knack work in your business. So you wanna ask yourself, what is it that you are working on that you're like, oh, I'm too busy, I can't take on any more clients, right? Are you, again, answering customer service emails? Are you managing your own social media? Are you fiddling with landing pages and web pages and Kajabi and Thinkific and trying to get the tech to line up and trying to figure out how ConvertKit emails work? If you're fiddling with all of those things and that's taking time in your day, and so you're looking at your calendar and you're like, I don't have enough time for another client, that's a good sign that you need to go ahead and hire someone to do that, because your business would be better served, even though you spend more money, to have someone handle that for you, because that creates more time for you to work directly with clients. So the second sign that you are ready to hire a team is that you are actively turning clients away. All right, the third sign that you need to hire a team is that you are doing tasks that you're not really an expert in. And so again, this was something that I learned very early on when I was first starting my business, when it was just me, right? Before I even hired that virtual assistant that I mentioned the first time, I was doing a lot of my graphic design myself. Like I was staying up super late after work, trying to figure out Photoshop, try to figure out how to make a gradient, do something with the color. Canva had just come out, but it wasn't as like amazing as it is now, where you could do a lot of graphics. And so I was spending a lot of time creating my own graphics. And so I actually looked to hire a virtual assistant to handle all those customer service emails that I was getting. And the first virtual assistant that I hired, she ended up being so good at graphic design that I was like, you just do graphic design all day and I'll hire somebody else to do the customer service. So I actually made my first 2 hires before I hired myself. They were overseas virtual assistants, so it wasn't terribly expensive, but I was not an expert at graphic design yet. There I was in the middle of the night doing it. So you wanna ask yourself, what are some tasks that you're doing that you're really not an expert in, that again, if you could delegate that to someone who is an expert, it would free you to do more of what you need to do in your business. And I get it, it's scary, because especially when you're paying for experts to handle things, you know, typically experts are gonna charge a little bit more money, but again, you wanna make sure that you are aware of your own value and how much you could be earning if you spent that money elsewhere. Now, recently, I did this when it came to hiring an instructional design team. Instructional designers are not cheap, right? For my program, The Next Big Name, we spent multiple 5 figures alone just in designing and developing that program, because again, it was a whole team of instructional designers who were doing that for me. So that was like, whoo, am I really about to make this investment? But again, I am not an expert in adult learning science, right? And so I was spending a lot of time first, brainstorming like, okay, this is what I want to teach, and here's all the topics that I want to cover, and then trying to figure out the best way to organize that so that my clients got great results. And I was like, I'm spending a lot of time coming up with these programs, organizing them in a certain way. There's people that do this, right? Yeah, they're called instructional designers. And so I went out and hired them because I'm not an expert in instructional design. They are, right? I'm an expert in my expertise, but they're an expert in taking my expertise and organizing it in a way that people can learn it and actually receive the information. So that has been a beautiful partnership, and I'm really excited that I did decide to bring them on the team. But I want you to ask yourself, what are some things that you are doing out of habit maybe that you're not really an expert in, that if you hired an expert, even if you spent more money to bring that person in, you would make more money because it would free you to do the things that you're actually an expert in. All right, I have more where that came from, but first I want to hear from you. Do you have a team? Share in the comments below. All right, the fourth sign that it's time for you to start hiring a team is that you have no time to work on your business because you're always working in your business. Now, this concept was actually popularized by a very famous business book. It's called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. I highly recommend everyone read this book. This was one of the first books that I read back in college when I first was interested in entrepreneurship. And he really chronicles and documents the journey of all of these entrepreneurs who became entrepreneurs because they were like maybe working for another company, and they were like, hey, why am I doing this for this company? I should start my own company and I could do it for myself. And so they end up starting their own company, and they keep doing the work that they've always done, but they never transcend to this level of, again, being CEO, being the strategist of the business and working on the business versus working in it. I think in the E-Myth Revisited, the author Michael Gerber gives the example of a baker, right? A baker, she's baking for a different bake shop or bakery, and she's like, why am I spending all my time baking all these amazing cakes for this bakery? I could start my own bakery, right? My baked goods are the best and I have the best recipe. And so she launches out on her own and she starts her own bakery, but then she finds that her business is not growing because she's in the bakery all day baking stuff, making sure that everybody's following the recipes properly and, working in the business, but she's not working on the business in terms of what's the strategy? Do we want to expand? Do we want to go into different markets? What should our branding and everything be? She's not thinking at a strategic level because she's working in the business. And so this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with. Again, if you are struggling with any of the previous points, working on lower level tasks, doing things that you are not an expert in, that's probably a strong sign that you are working in the business all the time and you do not have enough time to work on the business. So you want to start really building a team and kind of delegating to give you more time to work on the business. Now, it doesn't have to be an either or thing. Maybe right now, if you're working 100% in your business and 0% on your business, maybe you make a commitment where you're like, okay, over the next quarter, I want to shift that to where I'm working 85% in my business and 15% on my business. And then when you work on your business 15%, maybe that gives you new ideas and strategy that grows the business, that then allows you to, reduce the time even more, where now maybe you're working 70% in the business and then 30% on the business. And then it keeps growing. And then it gets to the point where maybe you're doing 50-50, right? I think at no point really will you not ever work in the business. Maybe if the business like really grows and it becomes almost this like passive thing. There's a guy here on YouTube, Alex Hormozy. I feel like everybody is talking about him on YouTube, but he talks about how he had built his businesses to a point where they literally didn't need him. And if he like tried to interfere with them because he was bored, like he would break something. And so he totally built his businesses to remove him out. So that's an example of someone who was working like 0% in the business, right? Because I don't even think he was working on the business at that point, because he probably hired people to do that as well. So that's a kind of an extreme example. But for most entrepreneurs, you might do a bit in the business here and there, but you really want to get to the point where you're mostly working on the business. And that is something that happens over time, right? I'm still working in my business, right? I'm still recording these videos. So don't take this as you should never work in your business, but I do set aside a fair amount of time to work on my business, right? I'm actually really excited because tomorrow, as I'm recording this video, I have a spa day, right? I'm having a CEO spa day where I'm going to spend the whole day at the spa, bring my iPad and kind of brainstorm and work on the business. So you want to make sure that you are giving yourself that time. And if you can't take that time, it's probably because you need to hire a team. All right, the fifth sign that you need to hire a team, this is going to sound crazy, is that you can't afford to hire a team. Oftentimes when you are noticing these other points that we've mentioned in this video. You know, you're spending more time in the business than on it. You're working at lower level tasks. You're doing things that you're not an expert in. Your business is kind of hitting a ceiling and you're not making the revenue that you need to make, but the only answer is to bring someone on. But again, you're not making the revenue that you need to make, so you can't really afford to bring on a team. So a lot of entrepreneurs stay stuck in that cycle because they're like, I'll hire someone when we start making more money. Like, I promise, Courtney, that's the first person I'm gonna hire is when my revenue increases. But that's the whole point. Your revenue is not ever going to increase until you hire someone. So for many businesses, especially in the beginning, those first few hires, I'm just being real with you, you're gonna have to make them when you quote unquote can't afford it. And this is something I had to do even recently, right? This year, I remember I really needed to bring on a full-time executive assistant. In fact, I was a part of a mastermind. I keep mentioning this 55K mastermind that I was a part of. Everyone in there was a multimillionaire, way more successful than I was, but that's why I was in the mastermind, because I wanted to see how they thought. And so I kept asking these questions, and I was really amazed that they were perplexed that I was even asking that question, right? So there was a particular marketing strategy that they were recommending, and I was kind of like hyperventilating because I was like, oh my goodness, we already have so much going on. How am I gonna be able to put this together and manage this? And they were looking at me like perplexed, like, why, when we recommended this to you, we never expected that you would actually be the person doing this. And they were like, don't you have an executive assistant? And I was like, what? No, I don't have an executive assistant. Like, I'll hire them later after I implement this marketing strategy and make all this money, then I'll hire them. But no, I don't have an executive assistant right now. And they literally were like, look, before you work on marketing strategies, your homework is to go home and to hire an executive assistant. Like, don't come to the next meeting until you have an executive assistant. They literally told me that. And I was like, but I knew my executive assistant needed to be like US based, because this is someone that I was gonna need to speak with all the time. She was gonna have to interface with my US based, service providers, my attorney, my accountant. Like, I really needed a US based person that I could like call on the phone, that could call and support my clients. And so I was like, oh my goodness, this person's gonna have to work full time. I'm gonna have to pay them a full-time US salary. And then again, the pain and the memories and the trauma of that 2018 situation came flooding back, where I was like, oh my goodness, what if I hire them and I'm gonna have to let them go again, right? And so again, I had to let that limiting belief go. And even though I felt like at the time that like, oh, I cannot afford to bring on a full-time US-based person, because I believe in listening to mentors and listening to people who are ahead of you and who are where you want to be, even though it didn't make sense to me. And here's a hint, oftentimes people who are ahead of you, the things they tell you to do will not make sense to you, because if it made sense to you, then you would be where they were, right? So I was like, you know what? I didn't spend all this money to be in this mastermind to ignore these people, so I'm gonna do what they told me to do. So I went home and I did it, and literally like within 30 days, like freedom, right? And so now I'm at the point where I'm like, how did I live? How did I do these things without an executive assistant, right? It kind of reminds me of when I wasn't sleeping, because I, was a new mom, and I was up with the baby, and all the different things that I would do, the places I would drive, right, before I was getting a full night's sleep. And then when I started getting a full night's sleep and I realized how tired I was previously, I was like, oh my goodness, like, how was I driving a car on 10 days of 2 hours a night sleep, right? Like, you become amazed that you even like made it happen, right? That's how I was when I saw the results of having an executive assistant. I was like, how is it that this business even operated? Like, this is insane, right? And so the business got to a place very, very quickly after that hire where we could totally afford her, right? But I had to make that leap before I could do it. And so I'm just warning you, if you're listening to this and you're like, ooh, I know I need to hire a team, but I'll do it when I start making more money. You're not gonna make the money unless you hire the team, so go ahead and make that hire. All right, thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you're gonna love my outsourcing cheat sheet. So you're probably wondering, where do I find people, especially virtual assistants and different things? I actually have an entire cheat sheet where I share a lot of the tools, resources, and places that I find different people to support me in my business, and is completely free. So if you're interested in that, click the link below to download that outsourcing cheat sheet right now. All right, thanks so much for watching this video. If you loved it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And if you want even more where this came from, make sure that you are subscribed to my podcast, The Courtney Sanders Show. And if you can't wait for my next podcast episode or my next video, make sure you are following me on Instagram. It's CourtneyLSanders on Instagram. I only have one account. I'll never misspell my name. So don't be fooled by spammers out there. And if you're not sure, click the link here in the description box, which will take you directly to my Instagram account. But with that, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.